Hello, welcome to our RecapPlus channel with me, Matthew. Today we will watch a recap movie called Jack Reacher, released in 2012. This is a spoiler content video. So please turn on the subtitle and let's start the story. On a sunny afternoon in Pittsburgh, the tranquility suddenly shattered when a sniper executed a daring and deadly act along the banks of the Allegheny River. This mysterious gunman took the lives of 5 innocent people. The sequence of events began with an enigmatic man parking his car in a building, behaving oddly in his obedience to parking regulations. Strangely, he meticulously inserted a coin to pay for parking before discreetly arming himself with a shotgun and donning sunglasses, aiming to exude an aura of coolness. Then, without warning, he started targeting the unsuspecting individuals gathered in that location and opened fire. His initial victim was a man sitting on a bench near PNC Park, and from there, the other 4 unfortunate souls fell prey to his lethal rampage. Immediately following the attack, the mysterious assailant swiftly departed the building in his car. The Pittsburgh police responded promptly to aid the victims. Led by Detective Emerson, a specialized team arrived at the parking facility, where they discovered a shell casing and the quarter used to pay for parking. These crucial pieces of evidence held the potential to lead them to the shooter by uncovering fingerprints. Remarkably, the fingerprint on the coin was identified as belonging to a certain James Bear. Acting swiftly on this breakthrough, the police conducted a raid on James Bear's residence. They found him unconscious and also came across the van and rifle employed in the horrific incident. Moreover, they stumbled upon a bullet printer in his garage. During the subsequent interrogation, conducted with Detectives Emerson and District Attorney Ronan, James Bear was presented with a critical decision. He was given 2 options: to confess to the heinous shooting he had committed and face a lifetime behind bars, or to opt for the death penalty. James Bear took a piece of paper and began writing, leading Ronan to believe he was drafting his confession. However, to everyone's astonishment, James wrote the sentence, "Get Jack Reacher." This unexpected declaration sent shockwaves through Emerson and Ronan. As per Emerson's records, Jack Reacher was a former investigator in the United States Army Military Police, renowned for his work on major cases. Curiously, Jack's current whereabouts were unknown, as he had vanished without a trace. Upon hearing the news of James Bear's arrest on television, Jack Reacher wasted no time and headed straight for Pittsburgh. Before diving into the case, he decided to make a quick stop for supplies to maintain his distinctive appearance. Upon arriving in Pittsburgh, Jack requested to see James Bear. However, he was immediately directed to the infirmary, as James was in a coma due to severe injuries inflicted upon him by fellow inmates. Jack was determined to get to the bottom of this case and asked for access to the evidence. Unfortunately, his request was met with resistance from Ronan and Emerson. Frustratingly, as Jack was trying to navigate the obstacles placed before him, James Bear's lawyer arrived. To Jack's surprise, the lawyer was none other than Helen Roden, the daughter of District Attorney Ronan. Helen was taken aback to find Jack Reacher standing before her. Jack made it clear that he had no intentions of exonerating James or defending him in court. Instead, he aimed to uncover the truth and put an end to James's descent into madness. Jack Reacher revealed a disturbing fact about James, explaining that he had been involved in a shooting incident during his service in Iraq. However, the military court did not proceed with the legal process because all the victims in that incident had been men with dark histories, particularly involving the torture of women during wartime. Jack had arrived in Pittsburgh with a promise to James: if he committed another murder, Jack would carry out his execution. Despite learning this secret about James, Helen remained determined to defend him. She explained to Jack that he could lead the investigation and review the evidence, but Jack initially refused. Feeling that she hadn't garnered support for her case, Helen watched as Jack boarded a bus. However, just as she was about to leave the terminal, she found Jack standing near her car. Ultimately, Jack agreed to accept Helen's offer under the condition that she would also be willing to view the situation from the victim's perspective. Helen embarked on a journey to visit the families of the victims one by one, aiming to gain a deeper understanding of the victims themselves. Meanwhile, Jack delved into the crime scene, meticulously examining the available evidence at one of the victims' homes. During her visits, Helen encountered an unsettling situation when she noticed a gun on a table, which left her feeling unnerved. She hurried outside, only to find her father, Ronan, waiting. Ronan questioned Helen and Jack's activities in the investigation, demonstrating his concern as both a father and a district attorney. While personal issues lingered between them, Helen chose to evade the subject. Meanwhile, Jack came across the rifle that James had used in the evidence room. This led to a tense exchange between Jack and Emerson, who were at odds over their differing approaches to the investigation. They challenged each other's thoroughness regarding evidence and theories about James's mindset during the night of the incident. Later that evening, Jack visited a bar where he encountered a woman named Sandy. A misunderstanding ensued, leading to several men approaching Jack's table. One of them challenged Jack to a fight, which he readily accepted. Outside the bar, Jack found himself surrounded by 5 men who claimed to be Sandy's brothers. Before engaging in a fight, Jack conducted a psychological analysis of the group of men that surrounded him. He calmly played to their arrogance. However, the situation took a turn when the police arrived and promptly arrested Jack. While in handcuffs at the police station, Jack inquired about who had sent these men. Helen and Emerson arrived at the police station to secure Jack's release. Helen was visibly upset, as this fight could potentially tarnish her law firm's reputation. Jack explained that he had been framed by someone who wanted to hinder his work on the case. Afterward, Helen shared the results of her interviews with the families of the victims. The first victim was Christy, a babysitter who had been shopping for party clothes. The second victim, Rita, worked as a plaza cleaner and had just purchased tickets to a baseball game. Nancy, who bought a watch for her husband, was the next victim. Following her was Oline Archer, the owner of a local construction company, who had been seeking a loan. The last victim, Darren, was an investment broker who died holding a bouquet of roses he had just bought. Jack and Helen convened at a motel to discuss the victims and possible motives for the murders. Jack suspected that Nancy and Darren might have been involved in an affair. Meanwhile, an unknown man had been discreetly tailing Jack and eventually crossed paths with the mysterious shooter from the initial crime. It became apparent that they were collaborating on a plan and were concerned about Jack's interference. Suddenly, an elderly man who had been lurking in the shadows stepped forward. This enigmatic figure, whose name remains unknown, shared his harrowing experiences in a Serbian prison, where he had lost his fingers. He demanded proof of the other man's loyalty by intimidating him into severing his own finger. When the man failed to do so, he was shot and killed. The next morning, Helen handed over some files on James to Jack. Jack then requested Helen's assistance in locating a shooting range that James might have visited. Based on data related to gasoline purchases, Jack made a stop at an auto parts store to meet with Sandy. She was visibly surprised by Jack's presence and proceeded to divulge the events at the bar the previous night, attributing them to Jeb Oliver. Sandy then provided Jack with Jeb's address. Jack decided to pay a visit to Jeb's residence and encountered an elderly woman on the way, who made a call on her cell phone. While exploring the house, 2 men suddenly attacked him. However, a third man entered the scene, calmly aiming his gun at Jack. Jack confronted him and inquired about Jeb's whereabouts, but the man claimed ignorance and sensed something peculiar about Jeb's disappearance. Jack took matters into his own hands. He blocked the man's car and drove off, suspecting that Jeb might be dead. Doubts started to creep into Jack's mind regarding whether James was truly responsible for the shooting. He began to suspect that James might have been made a scapegoat by someone else. Jack believed that the crime scene had been meticulously arranged with an excessive amount of evidence, making it too easy for the police to find the supposed culprit. At first, Helen was skeptical, but Jack provided evidence that he had been under surveillance throughout the day. Jack requested Helen's help in identifying the owner of the car that had been waiting outside the office. They discovered that the car was registered under the Lavender Company, which happened to be Oline's rival firm. One of the shooting victims, they deduced, had likely been the main target, while the other 4 victims were randomly chosen as cover-ups. Helen examined the paper Jack had given her, which contained the conclusions of his investigation, and found that it aligned with their suspicions. Jack believed that someone was attempting to destroy Oline's company and framed James as the culprit. He asked Helen to find information about James's close friends to help identify the real shooter. Helen managed to locate a shooting range that met Jack's criteria and provided him with the address. In the meantime, Sandy was found dead, presumably killed by Charlie, the mysterious man connected to Samity and the shooter from the initial incident. Detective Emerson took charge of the investigation. While on the road, Jack noticed a car tailing him and pulled into a motel. He witnessed Sandy's body being taken away in an ambulance. Emerson, upon seeing Jack, drew his gun, but Jack sped away in his car, evading Emerson's accusations. Emerson and several police officers pursued Jack, who, in turn, chased after Charlie's car. Their pursuit led them into a tunnel, where Jack's car momentarily stalled. Fortunately, it restarted just before the police arrived, but by then, they had lost sight of Charlie. Jack eventually exited the tunnel and pulled into an alley to slow down. He was then intercepted by multiple police cars, led by Emerson. Jack tried to keep up with Charlie while evading the police. Jack ultimately lost track of Charlie once again. He decided to exit his slowly moving car and stood amidst a crowd of onlookers by the roadside. The police managed to stop Jack's car, only to find it empty. Emerson and District Attorney Rawdon accused Jack of murdering Sandy and stealing Jeb's car. They reported their suspicions to Helen, who remained unconvinced. Shortly thereafter, Helen received a phone call from Jack, who was determined to see this case through to the end and uncover the person trying to eliminate him. Jack also harbored suspicions about District Attorney Rawdon and Detective Emerson. He was already in Ohio, searching for a shooting range location. Jack introduced himself as Aaron Ward and began inquiring about James. However, Martin was unwilling to divulge any information until Jack proved his shooting skills. To Jack's surprise, Martin recognized that Aaron Ward was actually Jack Reacher. Martin then showed Jack a video of James practicing shooting at the range upon hearing about the Pittsburgh shooting, confirming Jack's suspicions. Upon reviewing the CCTV footage, Jack recognized a man who had accompanied James, and his name was Charlie. Jack immediately contacted Helen to share this new evidence. Helen relayed the information to Attorney Rawdon, particularly about the Lavender Company's involvement. However, Rawdon seemed dismissive of the evidence, even though his daughter's life was now at risk. Helen left her father's office and headed for the elevator, where she encountered Detective Emerson, who attacked her. Jack attempted to call Helen but was intercepted by Charlie. Charlie attempted to taunt Jack by threatening Helen's life, but Jack retaliated by using the evidence from the shooting range as leverage. Jack called again and threatened Charlie, stating that he would kill him. Someone then entered the room and startled Helen. It was Samity and his men, who had been waiting for Jack at the old mining site with Martin's assistance as a sniper. Jack tried to save Helen, with Charlie also taking aim to eliminate him. Jack arrived in a car that was moving in reverse, which Charlie and his friends fired upon. However, their efforts were thwarted when Martin began shooting at them. Martin's shots disrupted the focus of Samity's men, allowing Jack to pick them off one by one. Jack managed to take down another assailant and acquired a firearm, aiding Martin, whose location Charlie had already identified. After Charlie's rifle was disabled by Martin's shot, Jack entered a room and broke through the door. He sensed that Helen was being held in the main control room some distance away, prompting him to commandeer a mining tractor and head there. Meanwhile, Charlie had made his way to the main office to retrieve a shotgun. Jack's arrival was anticipated by two henchmen, whom he easily defeated. Charlie went in search of Jack and discovered two of his men dead. Jack cornered Charlie and disarmed him, causing Charlie to scream as Jack twisted his hand. His screams echoed throughout the room where Helen was being held. Emerson, seeing Jack's shadow approaching, aimed his two guns at Helen. However, Jack managed to shoot Emerson, who was using Helen as a shield. Jack then entered a room where Samity was seated in his chair. After calming Helen down, Jack approached Samity, pointing his gun at him and compelling Samity to reveal his full name. It turned out that his real name was Zakalovic, which means a prisoner human being. Jack urged Helen to call the police. However, at that moment, Samity attempted to manipulate Jack's emotions to make him lose focus and shoot at Samity. Jack walked away, leaving Helen bewildered. Jack believed that Helen was capable of properly closing this case, and he chose to disappear without a trace. It was a farewell from Jack, who departed the scene with Martin. Sometime later, James woke up from his coma, and Helen introduced herself as his defense attorney. However, James had no recollection of the shooting incident. Nonetheless, he felt a profound sense of guilt because of his previous actions in Iraq, which went unpunished, as Jack had forewarned Helen. The young lawyer then presented some crime scene photos and inquired about how James would have executed the shootings at that location. To her astonishment, James' description matched Jack's earlier analysis. James would have taken position on the bridge, parked at the side of the road, and shot from inside the car with the sun behind him. Helen smiled faintly, feeling a sense of triumph in front of Rawdon, who overheard the conversation. She comforted James, who believed he would not survive Jack Reacher. However, the person he referred to had already departed after completing his mission, Jack Reacher's investigative action in this case. The film emphasizes the notion that the truth will always prevail, even when crimes are carefully concealed. Jack Reacher's foresight enabled him to unravel the mystery. Although there weren't too many action scenes, the intricate investigative storyline made the film an engaging watch. Thanks for watching.